This is the 6th of 8 video revision sessions for the theory paper, which will help you with your mock exam on the afternoon of Friday the 2nd of February 2018 and your real exam on the morning of Monday the 18th of June 2018. This is the second video to look at in the workplace, and it specifically looks at ICT data systems in business, methods of protecting data, and data protection and the law. So the first thing we're looking at is ICT data systems, and the very first thing is input devices. Input devices are any equipment that feeds data into a computer. So try and name some now before we have a look at the answers. So the most common input devices are a keyboard, and when you type on the keyboard, the data goes into the computer and it appears on your screen. So a keyboard is an input device. The next most common input device is a mouse. You click on the mouse to click instructions into your computer so your computer can do something. Another input device is a scanner, a digital camera, where you take the image from the camera onto the computer, a webcam, where it takes your moving image and plays it into the computer, so it's an input device. And the next one is voice recognition system. So when you're talking on a microphone like I am now, it's going into the computer, and that voice data can be used for something later, like for example typing up letters without having to type it on the keyboard or something along those lines. The opposite to input devices are output devices, and output devices are basically equipment that shows the data stored in a computer. So these output devices allow us to see that data that you've already put into the computer using your input devices, and some of these are a monitor. So the data comes out of the monitor and into your eyes, so it's an output device. A projector, so again we don't have many projectors in school, but if you think of the assembly hall, there's a projector in there, and the computer feeds into the projector, and the projector projects what is on the computer screen onto the main screen so everybody can see it. So it comes out of the projector and onto the screen. And a printer. So a printer, when you print something out, it comes out of the printer, and you've got a hard copy there printed on paper. So it's an output device because it comes out of the computer and allows you to see it. An output device allows you to see or hear or touch something that is coming out of the computer. Other common output devices are speakers, that allows you to hear volume or hear sound coming out of the computer. So there's a variety of very common input and output devices that we can use in business. The last part of this section looks at storage devices, and a storage device is a piece of equipment which is capable of storing electronic data. So if you have a think now about the different devices that allow you to store some of your work, here's some of the answers. A hard disk. So all computers have a hard disk, which is capable of storing all the data that we produce, work and things like that. CDs. So CDs store data, whether that be music data or written data. We can store Word files or publisher documents on CDs as well. DVDs. DVDs store video data, but they also are able to store files and folders that we might produce on our computer. And one of the most common ones is a USB memory stick, which allows you to store different pieces of data, different pieces of work on that USB memory stick, and be able to take it home, bring it back into school or back into your place of work. And all of these different devices allow us to store electronic data. So now we're looking at methods of protecting that data. So we've stored it, but now we need to try and protect it. So, businesses deal with all sorts of data which is stored electronically, and there are lots of benefits for storing data this way, but it also creates many possible ways of losing it or that data being stolen. And the sort of data that might be at risk of being stolen or used by someone outside the business could be information such as sales figures. You wouldn't want sales figures falling into people's hands who shouldn't see it for your business. Customers' names and addresses. You wouldn't want anybody just seeing your customers' names and addresses, maybe even their bank details. And passwords. You certainly wouldn't want anybody outside of your business knowing people's passwords. Inside the business, data should be secure too, as not all internal users should be able to access all information. Take our cleaners in school, for example. The cleaners might have computer access to be able to order new cleaning products, but they certainly shouldn't be able to see our students' data. So inside the business, it's really important that not all internal users should be able to access all of the information, and that's where we need to protect the data. So, in order to keep that hardware safe, so the hardware is those physical parts of the computer that we can touch, maybe like our hard drives or things like that. In order to protect that hardware, we can make sure that the rooms that the computers are in are secure. We can lock the doors and we can lock the windows. We can record serial numbers of computers so that if they are stolen, then there's more chance of getting them back. There should be rules about who can take laptops home and how they can actually be stored and where they should be stored when they are at home. Specialist locks can be used where perhaps it's a keypad, or maybe where it's a thumbprint, or maybe you've got to have the correct pass to be able to get you into the lock. And backups should be kept in a secure place and in a different location to the original data. So you certainly wouldn't have your computer in front of you, make a backup onto a memory stick, and then leave your memory stick on your desk for somebody to pick up. So backups need to be kept secure and in a different location to the original data. So the next bit we're looking at is methods of protecting data, keeping data safe from external access. So keeping that data safe from people outside of your business who shouldn't access it. So you could install computer virus protection software, so that will protect the data from being destroyed. You could train staff to be aware of emails with attachments from unknown senders. If there is an email that comes in from an unknown sender, it could possibly have a virus attached to it, and what you would want your staff to do is to be able to delete that rather than open it, and then obviously put your computer system at risk. Using a firewall, this stops any unauthorized users from accessing the computer network and then trying to steal that important data. Using something called encryption, and this is the process of translating data into a secret code. So sometimes it becomes jumbled up, it becomes a load of numbers and letters, a load of rubbish if you were able to see it. But encryption really just keeps that information, those special bits of data, really safe. Making sure that the wireless network is password protected. One of the biggest downfalls to home security at the moment when your computer is a non-secured wireless network. If your wireless network at home doesn't have a secure password on it, anybody can see any of the devices that are attached to that. So if you have an iPad and it's attached to your home wireless network, but your wireless network doesn't have a password on, anybody could pull up outside your house and see what you're doing on your iPad by accessing your wireless network. It's the same in a business, making sure that the business's wireless network has a password on it and that it's password protected means that the data can be kept safe as well. And finally, rules about who takes home laptops or laptops home with them, any disks and any memory sticks that might store data on them. all these rules are important so that the data isn't put down and somebody comes along and picks it up. We're always hearing in the news that an important laptop was taken home and it was left on a bus and things like that. So rules about who takes laptops home, any disks that go home, and any memory sticks that go home. Keeping data safe from internal access. So keeping data safe from people from within your business. So within school we use usernames and we use passwords that allow people to only access certain data required for them in school. And it's the same within the business. I have a username and a password so that I can access teacher data on the computer. Our IT technicians have their own usernames and passwords because that allows them to access much higher levels of security within our computer system. Our students have a username and password that only allows them to see their own data and the shared area. So the use of usernames and passwords in a business also allows people only access to certain data required for their job. Encouraging passwords to be changed regularly and keeping them secret by employees can make sure that the data is kept safe. Making some files read-only. Now read-only files can only be read. Sounds silly, but anybody who accesses a read-only file can't delete it, can't change it, and that can keep the data safe. Either through malicious intent, so somebody purposefully trying to delete or change the data, or somebody doing it by accident. Not everybody is very good at a computer, and so some people can change this data completely by access and by accident, and making some of those files read-only can actually protect your data. So there is an area of the law called the Data Protection Act, and that's what we're going to have a look at now. So data protection and the law. So businesses keep data on customers, particularly these days when they buy and they sell things, and there's lots of customer details that are stored by businesses these days. So whether that be on paper or whether it be on computer files, and there are laws to control how the data is actually used. And this is called the Data Protection Act, and it basically says two things. It says that any business that holds personal data about individuals, about customers, or about employees must comply with the 8 protection principles, and we'll have a look at those in a minute. And the second thing is data subjects. Those are the people who have the data saved about them. The data subjects have various rights to see, to correct, and to prevent their personal data being processed or used for marketing without their permission. So the Data Protection Act and the law. Now there are 8 principles of the Data Protection Act. Pause the video now and see if you can remember some of them that we've covered in class. If you don't know them, then this is the best chance to learn them. The only way that you will remember these 8 is by learning them off by heart. So the first one is data must not be processed unless there is a specific lawful reason to do so. Second one is data can only be obtained and used for specified purposes. So the company must say what the data is being collected for, and then it can only be collected and used for that purpose. Number 3, data should be adequate, it should be relevant, but shouldn't be excessive for the specified purpose. If you don't need to collect information about somebody's children and their ages and their date of births and where they go to school, that's excessive data and it's not needed. Number 4, data must be accurate and must be kept up to date. Number 5, data should not be kept any longer than is necessary. Number 6, data processing should meet the legal rights of the data subjects, so it must be legally correct. Number 7, data holders must protect the data against loss, theft or corruption. It's really important that the businesses actually protect that data against it being lost, being stolen, or it becoming corrupt. The final one, number 8, is data should not be transferred abroad except to certain other European countries. That's because other countries outside of Europe don't have the same data protection laws as we do in the UK. So, the Data Protection Act gives these rights to data subjects. So pause the video now and write down the 5 things that you think that data subjects have the right to be able to do with their own data. So, number 1, the data subject, or the person who's having their information stored about them, has the right to view data that's held about them. They should be able to know what information has been held about them. Number 2, the right to prevent the process of data if it might cause distress. So if any data is going to be used to cause distress, the data subject has the right to prevent that being processed. Number 3, the right to compensation if damage or distress has been caused. Number 4, again, the data subject has the right to have any inaccurate data changed or deleted by the company. And the final one is the data subject, the person who's having the data held about them, has the right to prevent data being used to send junk mail.